He coughed for 3 months straight. Every night I could hear my father's cough echoing through the walls, deep, rattling, and relentless. He was 76, proud and stubborn, the kind of man who never complained even when his knees gave out or when the cold made his hands tremble. But the cough. It wore him down. At first we thought it was just a lingering cold, but when it didn't go away, when his voice grew hoarse and sleep became impossible, I took him to a doctor. The diagnosis hit harder than we expected: chronic bronchitis. The doctor said, at his age, it may never fully go away. You'll need to manage it with medications, maybe even oxygen. I watched my father nod quietly, accepting a future of pills and wheezing nights. But I couldn't. I refused to believe this was all we could do. That night I sat down with an old notebook that belonged to my grandmother. She was a healer in her own way, never formally trained but wise in the remedies passed down from her mother's mother. And there, between faded recipes and prayers, I found a handwritten cure: bananas, honey, and hot water. I hesitated. Could something so simple really help where medicine had failed? I didn't tell Dad. I just made the mixture and gave him a cup. 5 days later, something unexpected happened. But before I tell you what changed, let me explain why this simple drink might be the quiet miracle your body's been waiting for. Bronchitis often sneaks in disguised as something ordinary. It usually starts with a common cold, a runny nose, a scratchy throat, maybe a mild cough. But for older adults, especially those over 60, what begins as a simple irritation can quietly evolve into something far more serious. Bronchitis is an inflammation of the bronchial tubes, the pathways that carry air in and out of your lungs. When these tubes swell and fill with mucus, breathing becomes harder. The cough deepens. You feel chest tightness. And worst of all, the condition can linger for weeks or become chronic. What makes this so dangerous for seniors is how subtly it escalates. Many people think it's just a cold and let it run its course. But chronic bronchitis isn't just a bad cough. It can damage the actual tissue of your lungs over time. It reduces oxygen flow, increases fatigue, and leaves you vulnerable to even more serious infections like pneumonia. Worse, it doesn't always come with a fever or severe symptoms early on. You may not even realize your body is struggling until you wake up one morning and realize you're short of breath just walking to the kitchen. That's what happened to my father. And when the doctor said, "There's no cure, only management," I felt this sharp tug in my chest. Was that it? Just steroids, puffers, and oxygen tubes? That's when I decided to go deeper, to understand this illness fully and to explore if nature still held a remedy that modern medicine had forgotten. We left the doctor's office with 3 prescriptions. One was a steroid, another a bronchodilator, and the third a cough suppressant. At first I was hopeful. Maybe this cocktail of modern medicine would finally bring my father relief. But by the second night, something felt off. He couldn't sleep. His heart was racing. He said he felt jittery, like something was buzzing under his skin. His mouth was dry, his appetite disappeared, and worst of all, he still coughed. Just as hard, just as often. That's when I began reading about side effects in older adults. Corticosteroids, especially when taken over several days, can weaken bones and elevate blood pressure. Some seniors develop insomnia or even mood swings. Certain cough syrups contain dextromethorphan or codeine. Both can cause confusion or drowsiness, which in an older adult can lead to dangerous falls. And while medications can help reduce symptoms, they often don't address the root cause. They suppress, they manage, but do they heal? I sat at the kitchen table that night feeling defeated. I didn't want to take my father off his medication, but I also couldn't ignore how much it was wearing him down. That's when I remembered the old recipe in Grandma's notebook. What if this wasn't just an old wives' tale? What if the answer wasn't in the pharmacy, but in the fruit bowl on the counter? The next morning, I opened the cupboard, pulled out the honey jar, and reached for the bananas. It was time to try something different. It took less than 10 minutes to prepare. I peeled 2 ripe bananas, soft with brown spots, just like Grandma used to insist, and mashed them with a fork until they were smooth. Then I boiled 400 milliliters of water, poured it over the bananas, and let it sit for half an hour. The kitchen smelled warm and comforting, like childhood. After the mixture cooled, I added 2 tablespoons of raw honey. Not the clear processed kind, but thick, cloudy honey from a local farmer's market. That was it. No pills, no syrups, just bananas, honey, and water. I poured 100 milliliters into a cup and handed it to my father. He looked skeptical. "What's this?" he asked. I just smiled. "It's something Grandma used to make. Just drink it. We did this 4 times a day, morning, noon, evening, and before bed. Every night I made a fresh batch. By the 3rd day, something shifted. His cough didn't echo through the house anymore. He slept, really slept for the first time in weeks. He could talk without gasping. And for the first time since his diagnosis, he looked lighter. But why did it work? Why this simple trio of ingredients? The answer lies in the powerful science behind them. You might think of bananas as just a convenient snack, but inside that yellow peel lies something far more powerful. Bananas are rich in antioxidants, especially dopamine and catechins. These aren't just feel-good compounds. They actively fight inflammation and oxidative stress, 2 major culprits behind chronic bronchitis and lung damage. When your lungs are inflamed, every breath feels like a struggle. Dopamine helps calm that inflammation from the inside out. But there's more. Bananas are also high in manganese, a mineral many people overlook. At Oregon State University's Linus Pauling Institute, researchers found that manganese activates an enzyme called superoxide dismutase. This enzyme works inside your mitochondria, the tiny power plants in every cell, and protects them from stress and damage. Why does that matter? Because when your body is battling bronchitis, the cells in your lungs are under constant attack. Superoxide dismutase helps shield them, repair them, and restore normal breathing. And then there's banlec. Hidden deep in the banana is a special protein called banana lectin, banlec for short. It binds to sugar molecules on the surface of viruses, including influenza, and even more serious strains. Scientists believe banlec can neutralize some viruses before they spread. Think about that, a natural antiviral compound tucked inside an ordinary fruit. No wonder Grandma swore by bananas. They weren't just comforting, they were quietly medicinal. That's why I chose them as the heart of my father's recovery. Not because they were trendy or exotic, but because science had finally caught up with what grandmothers always knew. Nature knows how to heal if we're willing to listen. If bananas were the heart of the remedy, honey was the soul. I remember watching my father take that first sip and pause. "It's sweet," he said, surprised, "but not like sugar. It's soothing." He was right. Honey doesn't just coat the throat, it comforts it. But this isn't just about taste. Honey, especially raw or manuka honey, is packed with natural antibacterial and antiviral properties. It contains trace amounts of vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that support immune function, something that becomes more critical with age. But the real magic, it's in honey's ability to calm a cough. One clinical study compared buckwheat honey to dextromethorphan, a common cough suppressant found in over-the-counter medications. The result, honey worked better. Not just for children, but for adults too. The World Health Organization even classifies honey as a demulcent, which means it forms a protective film over the mucous membranes, easing irritation in the throat and calming that relentless dry cough that keeps you up at night. For my father, that change came by the 2nd night. He wasn't sitting up coughing at 2 a.m. anymore. He was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. And I'll never forget the look on his face the next morning, relieved, hopeful, even a little amused. "It's just honey," he chuckled. But we both knew it was more than that. It was healing the way nature intended. We often overlook water. It's not flashy, not exotic. But without it, nothing in the body works the way it should, especially when you're sick. In this simple remedy, water plays a crucial role. Boiling it helps extract the nutrients from the bananas. But more importantly, it hydrates the body, a key step in thinning mucus and easing a tight chest. When you're dehydrated, mucus becomes thick and sticky. That's when coughing gets worse. It's like trying to breathe through a straw filled with glue. For older adults, staying hydrated can be a challenge. Taste changes, appetite drops, and water just doesn't appeal like it used to. But in this warm banana and honey drink, water becomes more than a base. It becomes medicine. And the result? My father began coughing less, breathing easier, not just because of the ingredients, but because every sip gave his lungs what they were begging for: moisture, relief, renewal. We didn't expect much at first. It was just bananas, honey, and water. But the changes came quietly, almost like a whisper. On day 1, his cough softened. It didn't vanish, but it no longer shook the room. On day 2, the mucus began to loosen. He no longer struggled to clear his chest. He said, "It's easier to breathe this morning." By day 3, his voice returned less hoarse, more steady. He could hold a conversation without pausing to catch his breath. Day 4 brought deeper sleep. He stopped waking up at 3 a.m. to sit upright in bed. For the first time in weeks, he dreamed again. And on day 5, the cough that had haunted him for months was quiet. Not gone forever, but quiet enough that he could smile, eat, and laugh without wincing. All from 3 ingredients taken faithfully 4 times a day. No side effects, no prescriptions, just a little patience and a lot of nature. Watching my father heal without pills was humbling. I had spent weeks researching side effects, chasing prescriptions, worrying about every breath he took. But in the end, it wasn't some new drug or expensive machine that helped him turn the corner. It was a recipe tucked inside an old notebook. Bananas, honey water, and love. I learned something important. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's warm, gentle, slow. It creeps in like sunlight after a long winter. This remedy didn't just ease his cough, it gave him back a part of himself. He smiled more, talked more, walked farther. And for me, it was a reminder that the body still knows how to heal if we support it with care, consistency, and belief. No, I'm not saying this drink will cure everything, but I am saying this before you give up, before you give in. Try the simplest path first. It might just surprise you. If you or someone you love has been battling a stubborn cough or struggling through the slow, exhausting days of bronchitis, I hope this story brings you a little hope. This remedy isn't a magic cure. It doesn't replace your doctor, your medications, or your checkups, but sometimes it's the simplest things passed down through generations that hold unexpected power. So why not try it? 2 ripe bananas, a little honey, some hot water, and 5 quiet days. That's all it takes. And if you do try it, come back and let me know what you felt, what changed, what didn't, what surprised you. Because maybe your story could help someone else. And if this message touched you in any way, please share it with someone who needs a little healing today. Sometimes all it takes is a warm cup, a gentle sip, and the courage to believe again.